If you've been in Salesforce for more than 10 minutes, you understand the idea and value of related lists. You've likely also come across some instances where standard related lists don't meet the organization's needs. There are several apps on the App Exchange that offer improvements, but we would like to share a pretty straightforward approach for building lists that can be made available virtually anywhere and can contain any set of records that you want, all without writing any code. Using this approach, you can build any list of records that can be placed anywhere in Salesforce. You can also add filters to the list to allow users to clearly define the records they need in any given situation. For our demo on our lead records, we want a list of accounts that can filter based upon several account characteristics. As you see in this demo, the user simply makes changes to the filters and the unrelated list automatically updates with the appropriate records. Our unrelated list is simply a screen flow within Salesforce with a single screen. The screen will contain three components: the filters that are used to specify the records, an app called Data Fetcher, and a data table. One key concept to understand is that the records within the table can come from any object within Salesforce and be defined by any criteria provided it can be done with a SQL query. We always recommend that you start with the end in mind. In this case, that is defining the records that you are looking to include in the data table. Specifically, you should think through what object you want to pull the records from, what fields that you want from that object, and what filters you want to have to determine the correct records. Once you have that, you can try to write your own SQL query, or you can leverage an easy-to-use tool like Workbench to write your query for you. The SQL query tool within Workbench allows you to easily define the fields and filters that you are looking to use in your query. It is really helpful to include all of your filters. If you want to allow users to filter on a field, you should include that filter with one of the selections that users may make. Trust us, this helps later on. Once you have defined your query, you should go ahead and run the query. Workbench should return the expected records. If records are not returned, you should modify your query to a set of filter settings where records are returned. Once you find that you have a working query, you should copy and save that query for use later in the billing of your list. The next step is to create a new screen flow and add the screen element to the flow. After you open the screen element, you start the build. There are 4 components that are recommended for your build. First is the filters that you want to offer users for defining the records that they want to see. These filters are often pick lists, but can also include text, numbers, and other fields that can be used within the SQL query. In our example, we are using 3 pick lists from accounts: type, industry, and ownership. Enter these pick lists with their respective choices into your screen flow. The second component in your screen flow is a free app from the App Exchange called Data Fetcher. Install that app into your org and add it to the screen flow. As a part of configuring Data Fetcher, you should create a text formula that contains your SQL query. This is the exact query that you copied from Workbench with one minor difference. It will have quotes around it to make is a valid text formula. The third component is the data table. The source collection for the data table is the returned records from Data Fetcher. As usual with the data tables, you will want to select columns to display and other data table configuration. The last component that we recommend, but is not required, is a display text component that will display selected values from your filters and the results of your SQL query. Once you've completed this initial build, you should go ahead and run the debug on it. This debug run should show the same records that appeared in Workbench when you initially defined the query. If those records don't appear, go back and check your setup. Going forward without resolving any issues will only make the rest of the work more challenging. Once you confirm that everything is working right up to this point, the balance of the work is altering the SQL query within the flow to respond to the different selections that may be made by users. As a starter, you can replace each of the values in your static filter with the picklist variables from within the flow. Things get a little more complex if you want to include in your filters the option for selecting all values in a picklist. In this case, you will actually want to exclude that variable from the where part of the SQL query. It may take a little time and some trial and error to get the full formula for the SQL query correct. The debug text field should really help out there. With a little time, you should have a fully functional filtered unrelated list for your users to leverage. Best of luck on your new build. Please let us know if you have any questions.